Welcome back to the Six Sad Lit podcast, where we get intimate with the writers behind some of today's most electrifying fiction. I'm your host, Jen Eastwood, and in this episode, I'm joined by Lucy Rose, Sunday Times best-selling author, award-winning filmmaker, and emerging literary voice in the Gothic and horror space. Before we dive in, a quick content warning. In this episode, we discuss themes of disordered eating, child abuse, and neglect, so please take care when listening and skip or pause if you need to. Lucy's debut novel, The Lamb, is a visceral, unforgettable descent into love, hunger, and horror. An instant Sunday Times bestseller and Dakota Johnson's Tea Time Book Club pick, it's a book soaked in folklore, violence, girlhood, and tenderness. We talk all about it, from cannibalism as a metaphor for love, to the airy beauty of rural Cumbria, to the power and pain of writing from a neurodivergent perspective. Lucy's also a decorated filmmaker whose short films have won Royal Television Society Awards and screened at BAFTA qualifying festivals. She's a Forbes 30 Under 30 honoree, a chocolate and crisps enthusiast, and a brilliant mind carving out a new space in literary and genre fiction. This episode is rich with craft talk, personal reflection, and some hard truths about the things we carry, especially when we're young, especially when we're girls. Settle in, this one is tender, harrowing, and full of sharp edges. Would you mind introducing yourself to some of the listeners and telling us a little bit about your work?
I'm Lucy Rose. I'm an author and a filmmaker and a sales and marketing assistant by day. I'm really into Gothic and horror. That's kind of my thing. I love consuming horror movies, reading horror books. And so that's kind of the work that you can expect from me.
Congratulations on your debut novel. I know that from what I've seen from people I follow on Instagram and other reviews that it's been well received and I loved it so much. What's it been like having your debut novel out in the world?
It is the most intense experience in the whole world ever. I don't think anything can kind of mentally prepare you for what it's like. But it's been like, honestly, 99% of it has been like an absolute joy. I feel so privileged and lucky that I have, one, being able to do it, and two, being able to work with like some of the most amazing people. And like, I don't want to brag, but my readers are like the best. Like, they are the loveliest human beings in the whole world. Like, everybody who's come out to an event to meet me or ask a question, they're just angels. So I just feel very lucky because they're all just amazing. So it's been really lovely. And I think all of that has kind of made the transition into being like a more public facing person, which does come with its challenges for an autistic person. All of that kind of working with amazing people, having really kind, empathetic readers has made that transition like, you know, almost seamless. So yeah, 10 out of 10.
It's so great to hear. I'm so pleased to hear that. Doesn't surprise me in the least because that, you know, your book has found the right readers. But I always feel like, because also as a ADHD person, the book community generally, like when you meet people that like the same kinds of books as you or like the same authors as you, it's just such a nice space. Like, it feels so good.
Yeah,
like
totally.
Whenever I go to an author event, I immediately make friends with other people who are at that same event because there's so many things about them that have to align with you for you both to be there at that time. Like, to like meet a person who firstly reads books.
Yeah.
Huge check mark. Secondly, likes the same genre as you. Second check. And then likes the same author as you, and then likes them enough to actually come to an event. Oh my God, we might as well be best friends. So
it's destiny, like it is.
Yeah, it's so wholesome. I love it so much. It gives me so much hope. Just that there is pockets of wonderful humans out there.
Yeah, absolutely.
So let's chat about the book itself. It is definitely visceral. There are some very unforgettable descriptions of food. The meals are grotesque, but also strangely beautiful. It's like reading a culinary book, but it's cannibalism. What inspired you to lean into almost like that sensual nature of cannibalism?
I've thought about this a lot because I've been asked this question once before and I didn't have an answer at the time. And I actually think like after like lots and lots of reflections, this is like kind of an exclusive. I think that I finally found the answer, which is that I honestly think that being neurodivergent has given me like a really, really like unwieldy pursuit of finding like the exact crisp word for a specific item of food, like the sensory aspect, like experiencing, like as an ADHD as well, you will know like the sensory experience is all too real and it can come on like a horror storm or it can be like the most amazing thing in the world. And I think like a lot of that experience went into writing in that way, and like so many neurodivergent people have reached out to me and said that they've kind of felt that too, which is really lovely. But also I just really love food. Like I am a massive foodie, I'm a chocolate gal, I'm a snack gal, I love crisps. So writing about something that I love every day, and like honestly like food to me is like something that sparks a lot of joy, and it hasn't always been, but I've really worked on my relationship to food. And so inviting that into the conversation and like making the food in the book, even though it's absolutely horrific, feel very joyful was kind of a super cathartic experience for me, because I think a lot of people have difficulties around food, and when you're neurodivergent there's kind of other layers involved. But I think being able to write about something that I genuinely love and I'm very passionate about made that process a lot easier. The third kind of prong to that answer is, so I don't know if you're a Hannibal girly, but
I am.
Okay, good.
Yes.
That TV show did things to me. Like,
That TV show.
It's so good. That TV show did things to me. Why was the food like? I know it was like he was like cooking up human lungs, but why did it look so delicious? Like, why did they have to make it look so good?
I'm not gonna lie, I agree. I was like, damn, like
Yeah,
those
I'm hungry.
kidneys, it's looking good.
They look great.
Yeah.
It's true. Like how they're able to like conjure like disgust and hunger in the same few seconds, to me was like, I need to do that. I need to learn how they've done that. And so like that was like another huge part, is like conjuring disgust and hunger at the same time, which was super fun. So yeah, there's a couple of different answers in there, but I hope I've answered the question.
No, that's a great answer. And actually, now that you mention it, your point about experiencing senses in such a heightened way, which I also relate to, I can see that now. And retrospectively, I can see that coming through. And I read your essay as well that you wrote on The Guardian about being a fussy eater, which I also relate to because I have similar things. Like I can only eat with certain pieces of cutlery that I like. Like the has to feel the right way.
Yeah, no, I totally know what you mean. I love it. I'm here for it.
I recently discovered, by the way, that there is a little pocket of TikTok for tism girlies. Yeah, look, like dissecting spoons and rating spoons. And I'm like, I've never felt so seen in my life. I thought it was just me.
It's stunning. And for me, it's always the spoons that kind of have a round texture to them, like with the little dots that go around the bottom. Like there's just something about those, the ones that are really thin and kind of like square and like, I don't know, they just don't work for me. They're awful. I think we should outlaw them. All about the round.
I need the whole experience to be smooth. Like I need it to be smooth on all edges.
Yeah.
It just feels wrong.
It does.
It's so, oh my God, I'm like, holy shit, I'd never vocalized this out loud. And then reading it, I'm like, oh my God, I'm not alone. And forks too. I have a thing about, and actually, I have a thing about forks.
Yeah,
I'm
the same.
It's so nice to meet similar people who get it. So yeah, it's you're among friends.
Thank you.
I also noticed in the book, and this was one of my tabs actually. In fact, I'll tell you what my tabs were.
Well, yeah, please do.
I had different colors. Green was for themes about childhood and children not being empowered to make their own decisions or not being believed as children. I'm also just assuming that these are the themes I picked up on. Cannibalism as a metaphor for love was one. Nature, and how to me nature almost felt like a character in it. It had its own life. Men and the patriarchy, and Mama's hatred of men was very strong. Queer themes, and then general quotes that I liked. So I had a field day, as you can imagine, because like every other page there was 10,000 things that I could possibly highlight. But cannibalism, obviously, as a metaphor for love is a really, really big one. And I think you did such a masterful job of like striking this balance of like feeling that love and also experiencing that horror. So how did you decide where to blur the line between violence and that domestic intimacy, like that relationship between a mother and a daughter?
That is such a great question, and one that I have never ever been asked before. God, that's a great question. I think that love is so gnarly, and like especially as girls, especially as like people who look like girls, present as girls, identify as girls, we are taught that love is the best thing that can possibly happen to you. And so like I think all of us have kind of collectively got this like expectation that like, you know, it's got to be the best, or we're doing something wrong, or there's something wrong with us. Like we must be broken if the love isn't perfect, which is so terrible because like love is, one, never going to be perfect, and two, it's not always, you know, it should never, that should never be the thing that somebody centers their entire universe around. Like that can't be healthy, I don't think. Healthiness is all about balance. So in terms of like writing that mother-daughter relationship, it was really tricky to get right because I think it actually hinges on Mama having a lot of nuance, which is hard to do because she's like actually a serial killer and a child abuser. So it was actually really hard to give her nuance as a writer. I was so with Margot for the whole, as I was writing, like obviously it's from her perspective, but she has like, I just wanted to protect her so much. But I think what I ended up doing, like on a craft level, on a very technical level, was I had to do separate passes to edit things about Mama. So if I was editing the book, I would be editing through the lens of Margot, but I just couldn't bring myself to find the nuance when I was in that headspace. And so I had to go back and do these like really separate, isolated passes to like really capture who she was, why she's doing what she's doing, why love for Mama is like, it's just so poisonous. And like her relationship to love versus Margot's relationship to love is like also very different, because I think Mama is somebody who, like, if I'm being completely honest, I don't think she's ever been given the love she deserves. Maybe that's why the way she is. She's not been given love, so she's never received it, so she can't give it to someone else. She was a really hard character to write, and I think it hinges on her having basically being able to see glimpses of her humanity is kind of what I think makes it believable that Margot would just crave it so much. Because every time you think that she becomes the worst person in the world, she'll give something vulnerable to Margot, and that kind of gives Margot this hope that, you know, like it's not always going to be this way, like, you know, whatever. So I think that's kind of where I found that balance between like, you know, vulnerability and beauty and like the great things about love, the joy it can make us feel, versus like the horror of love and how terrifying and trapping it can feel all at once. And I think like, especially as an autistic person, but as an extension, I think human beings really, really struggle to hold those, like, we're very black and white as like animals, we're very black and white creatures. And so like this, I think we struggle to hold an idea of two opposites existing at the same time together. And that's kind of something that Margot has to like really contend with, is that on one hand, her mum can be a monster, and also at the same time, she can also be a victim in and of her own right, but just in a different way. And I think it's that idea of exploring the perfect victim, because for some reason, especially when it comes to women, like a woman can't be a perfect victim. Either she's a victim and she's helpless and she's powerless, or she's done something to deserve it and therefore is stripped of her victimhood. And I think that that is like something that felt really strong and important to me while I was writing it.
That is so impressive to me, that you were able to put on different hats, so to speak, to embody both characters. I love Margot so much. Like, I'm so rooting for her, and she is so delicate and pure, and I just want her to have all the nice things in this world. And yeah, thinking about what you just said around how providing these glimpses of who Mama could be, her relationship with the strays is very nurturing and very loving on the surface, but then horrifying underneath. So she obviously knows what love and care looks like, even if she's just performing it. But how did you approach writing that duality of like when she would put the mask on or when she would take it off, because she definitely does have, she is a very interesting and complex character.
Also a great question. I think I'm trying to remember back to my writing process, and I think that I gave I'm trying to remember exactly what animals I gave them, but I think I gave each of my characters an animal. I remember that because there's like a line in the book, and I remember writing it in my first draft where Margot is thinking about what kind of animal Mama would be. And in the first draft, when it's like really messy and it's like a little bit just like word vomit on a page, I was like, that's actually, I think, where I need to go with my process. It was like my brain was subconsciously trying to tell me that I needed to implement that into the way that I was writing. So I think what I ended up doing was I definitely ended up giving them all animals. I think Margot was a bird. I think she was like a very small bird. And then Eden was like a snake, like an adder or something. And then I think Mama was like, honestly, a stag, I think it was. And I think it was a stag, not because I'm a Hannibal girly, but maybe because I'm a Hannibal girly.
That's okay. Hannibal's the goat.
Yeah, exactly.
OG.
The thing with stags, though, is that they're just so beautiful and like they look so tender, but actually they can be quite vicious animals, especially like the images of like antlers covered in like sinews and flesh and like. So I just really wanted to like embody that duality existing in one person at the same time. And I think it's just finding that center, I think, and asking lots of uncomfortable questions about, because I mean, I'm not really anything like Mama, but I had to put a lot of myself into Mama to be able to understand her. And so like, you know, she goes on a lot of feminist rants. That's just me going on a rant. And it was just my way of connecting with her and finding some common ground, but also like part of my process is equally at the same time. And this kind of feeds into my filmmaking as well and how I like to work with my actors. So I'm very anti-Stanislavski technique. I just think it's really psychologically dangerous. And I just don't believe in harming yourself for a job. I just don't think that that's something anybody should ever do. And so my kind of way of working with actors, which bleeds into my writing process, to find the differences between you and a character, because I think you can learn just as much from somebody about what makes you different in terms of like comparing it to what makes you the same. And I actually think it's a great exercise in empathy as well, because, you know, we shouldn't just want to understand people because they're the same as us. We should want to understand people because of the differences. So I think exploring those and just allowing myself to be like very detailed with who she was and allowing myself to sit with the things about her that make me deeply uncomfortable, and kind of soak it up and accept it and look at her in her wholeness is kind of what allowed me to understand that duality, because I don't have anybody in my life, who is like that. I've had managers like that where I've seen them switch, and I've met people before where I see that switch and it is terrifying. Unlike Margot, I can set excellent boundaries. So that's her lesson. But yeah, that duality is fascinating. Yeah.
I really felt for Mama when she would often, and I felt for Margot too, because no child should be on the receiving end of this particular commentary, but I felt for Mama often as she talked about what life was like as a woman after having had a baby, like this. And I think that is such an important conversation to have. I don't have kids. I don't want to have kids. I don't intend to. But I know that there's a lot of discourse online around how women are like, actually, I've had a child and it fucking sucked. Or I don't know who I am anymore. Like, I don't know. My brain's not working the way that it used to. And my entire existence is now devoted to looking after this tiny human, and there's nothing left for me. So I did deeply empathize with Mama when she would talk about how her life is not her own anymore. And obviously there's a time and a place to discuss that, and it's not with your daughter, but I thought that was it's really interesting, and it definitely added to her complexity, and it got me thinking. A lot of my quotes tablature is around that particular line of thinking from her. Slight pivot, but you've spoken in your Guardian essay, you spoke about your own lifelong hunger and how writing the book forced you to confront your own relationship with food. At what point during the writing process of The Lamb did you sort of start to realize that it was helping you process your own experience and your own story?
I think it was the moment I finished my first draft, which is actually, that sounds like quite a significant milestone or a significant way through the process, but it wasn't. It's been kind of a long process writing this book, so that was quite early days, to be honest. So I have like this problem with like binge eating, basically, or especially I have ebbs and flows. I think my ADHD plays a massive part in that. Like, I just have zero impulse control. You might relate to this. It's a massive struggle, and it doesn't just manifest in my food. It manifests still even now in the way my approach to writing, which is to do, like, I either do really tiny bursts because that's genuinely all I'm capable of doing, or I will sit for, like, on occasion, very rarely, and write like 10,000 words in a day, which is like the most unhealthy thing in the world. And I basically had like the ultimate binge on the last day of writing my first draft, which is where I sat down and I was like, if I don't finish the whole book now, today, I'm never going to finish it. And I don't know what it is about ADHD is giving up the last post, like, you're so close. So I sat and I wrote like literally over 10,000 words in a day, and I finished the book. And then immediately after, I went and bought like loads of chicken nuggets and ate like a massive bag of chicken nuggets. And I just sort of realized like how unhealthy my approaches, and like basically after that I basically stopped eating meat for like 2 or 3 years because I just couldn't.
That's surprised about the it almost made me go vegetarian, I'm not gonna lie.
I can't do it and I'm slowly starting to like dip my toe back in now because I've got an iron deficiency. Balance, baby, it's needed. Yeah. But I just sort of had this moment of being like, oh my god, like, you know, I need to sort my life out, and I need to kind of look at my relationship to food. And like, it's really, I think binge eating in particular, which is like so common in people with ADHD, is so tricky because you don't have the gratification of, so with an eating disorder, all eating disorders are terrible in different ways. I think the particular challenge of binge eating is that you are consuming loads because you're getting a dopamine hit for eating, but you still have like incredibly bad body dysmorphia. And the thing that is like the struggle with binge eating is you're getting bigger. And so the body dysmorphia aspect of that journey is actually like the most heinous thing in the whole world. I've kind of worked through a lot of that now. And I'm quite open about the fact that it has been a difficulty for me in the past. But I think it's just, food is just like one of those really fascinating things. And I hate that so many people have such a fraught relationship to it, because it should be, for me, when I think about what food should be and what it should represent, it should represent for me like community. Like, the best nights of my life are dinner parties with my friends where we're laughing together. We've made a massive communal meal. We're reaching across the table to get X, Y, and Z. And food is like, it's just not that. We live in a time, unfortunately, where like that pyramid of needs, which food is like right at the top next to shelter and warmth, you need it to survive, you need it to live, is just being completely exploited by like, you know, larger governments. And like, nobody should feel hungry. No child should ever feel hungry. No person who is working a full-time job should be struggling to pay for their food shop. And so like the idea that this thing that is just actually should be like a very joyful, beautiful experience and a communal experience is becoming very isolating and fraught makes me feel a genuine sadness, because that's just not how it should be. I'm very passionate about food, and I feel like I could talk about it all day. But it's that balance, isn't it? That just, it shouldn't be complicated. And it is, and it's so frustrating because it's not a choice in terms of like the individual choices that we make as people, but it is a choice that humanity has made to make it that way, because it doesn't actually have to be that way.
I totally agree, and I feel similarly strongly about the politicization of food.
Yeah,
I find it so deeply upsetting, and it's unnecessarily politicized. Like, food is a thing that we all need to live. Like, it shouldn't be so difficult.
How is food political? Like, why are we at this point in like?
Oh, I just feel who does this help? Really?
It
Who does
helps.
this help?
What, like probably like 5 people are probably
Yeah.
helped by it, but that's kind of the sad truth, isn't
Yeah.
it?
Yeah. Yeah, so I hear you. I hear you. And also, I've struggled in the past too, but my particular issue is around exercise. Like, I have previously developed eating disorders where I'll over exercise and then restrict my food. But it was not out of, it wasn't out of like trying to lose weight. It was like the
Control, or
control.
like,
Yeah,
yeah.
it was control and routine and like structure and just like, yeah, that's what it was about. So, and it's been an issue like on and off. I have to always be quite careful when I'm starting to work out again, is like
Yeah.
not let it become this huge thing. So yeah, it's
It's a struggle.
yeah, and I applaud you for being so open about your own experience. I think it's especially with binge eating, because it's not something that people talk about it as often. It doesn't get as much publicity, or it's not discussed as broadly in media. So I think it's a really important conversation to have. So slight sort of change of direction, but I want to talk about the setting of the book. So it feels like this incredible distorted like mythic version of Cumbria, that it's got this rural, eerie, isolated setting where it almost feels set in a different time because there's no reception, cell phones don't work, and it doesn't even seem to be really part of society aside from the trampers and those that come through. What was your process for world building? Was that sort of a deliberate act? Did it come about just through the process, more intuitively? What was your process there?
Okay, so I think there's a couple of prongs, and I'll try to like race through them so I don't spend the whole podcast just talking about Cumbria. Where I grew up, it was in the middle of nowhere. I don't technically even think you could call it a village because it was that tiny, and there was no phone signal.
Wow.
You were like isolated. We had internet, but it was like shocking. But there was no phone signal. You had to stand on a specific window ledge, like actually stand on it and like hold your phone up to get a single bar. It was insane. And there were no buses except for the one school bus that the school sent to us to come pick us up, take us to school, and then drop us back off again. And that is like super rural life. The nearest shop I think was like half an hour's drive away. So like if you needed to go get food, it had to be like a specific, okay, we're going out to go get food. So it was just like, it was honestly so isolated. And as like a kid, I didn't have the kind of upbringing where we were particularly engaged in technology. So sometimes, I don't know if it's because of my lived experience, that sometimes it did kind of feel like living in the past, and not in an entirely bad way either, but just in a way of like, I was a child who was very in touch with nature. I loved playing in the stream, playing with the eels. We had brook lamprey, which were like my favorite eels, Norwegian bullhead fish, just kind of animals. Like we'd build dams, we'd climb trees in the wood. And that was kind of my world, the world that I lived in.
That sounds like
now
a
like
fairy tale, honestly. That sounds amazing.
Honestly, like as a kid, I didn't appreciate it. I was like,
We never do.
I know. I was like, this is lame. I want to go to Claire's Accessories. And now I'm like, take me back. So yeah, I think that's part of it. The other part of it is I'm a horror girly. I love horror. And anybody else who loves horror too tends to smile when like certain tropes come up in different horror movies. You're like, I see you. And so like, even though like it's just a true reality that like most of the time when you go into the middle of nowhere, especially if it's in the Pennines, which is like where Cumbria is, so like phone signal struggles to get through like the massive hills and stuff like that. Just, you know, the no phone signal, the cottage at the edge of the wood, like these are kind of things that make me smile whenever I'm watching horror movies. It's great. I can see my cat coming over. Please do not meow. Stay silent.
No, I'm here for the cats. I'm here for it. You wouldn't be the first one who's had a furry companion come and hang out.
Yeah. She was walking towards me and like making like prolonged eye contact, and I was like, just don't, like, just wait, like. But yeah, so like there's certain horror tropes that when they pop up in horror movies, I tend to smile. It sort of feels like a bit of an in-joke, you know, like see what we did there. And so like I really wanted to kind of ingest those into the story. like even like the opening kind of pays homage in its own way to like the idea of an opening stinger, or a, you know, an opening kill. Like the Scream movies do it excellently, where there's kind of that opening like and so I kind of really wanted to you know, soak this novel with my love of horror and like all the things that I love about horror, the repeated tropes that come back up, which they are tropes, but I also think that these are tropes that tell us things about ourselves and about our condition. So the idea that without our phones we're like helpless is fascinating to me. And I could, you know, you could write a whole essay on like this idea of like having no phone signal being, that's okay, that means game over for you. Like that's, so there's a lot in there I think you can explore within these tropes about modern life and the things that we're scared of and how those have evolved. But also Cumbria is like just has a fascinating history. I wish I knew more about it as a kid. It's like only as an adult I've kind of looked back and learned about the heritage of the place. But it used to be like its own, basically its own country with its own language, its own cultural traditions. I know, so it was called Cumberland, and it basically was its own strip. And yeah, it had its own folklore, everything. That language is dead now. Sad. It was basically, I know, it was basically like taken over by the Anglo sort of area, and then the Scottish came over and did it, and then that was kind of back and forth for a very long time because it was just this tiny bit right between. And then also the Romans were like, we would also like some of that. They came over too and kind of put their stamp on it, and the Vikings, and so that like total identity crisis of a place has just, I mean, I personally think you can still feel it now because you can hear like Norwegian language in the dialect of how Cumbrians speak their words. The folklore is like so Frankensteined because it's just folklore from like so many different cultures. Like you have really like, you know, I always reference these two in particular, but you have, you know, the Croglin vampire who scratches girls' faces off, and you have the Tizzy Wizzy, which is a hedgehog with fairy wings. So it's just, you know, it's really out there and wacky. I find it to be a really interesting place. And it is, like, I do think it is a place that has a bit of an identity crisis about what it is, especially because even now you have the national park, which is kind of what Cumbria is known for, like the Lake Districts, the place the poets were inspired to write their greatest works, the place where people go on holiday, the really expensive place to live. And then you have other places in Cumbria which are really, 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 really not like that and don't have a lot of wealth or welfare support. And like that distinction between like rich and poor is very, very strong, I think. So it's a fascinating place. I think everybody should go there. Check it out.
Where is Cumbria in relation to, because my mother is Scottish, and so I've been to Scotland a couple of times and love it and prefer Scotland over the UK.
That is fair.
Yes, I love it. I love it. If I could live anywhere in the world, like snap my fingers, I'd live in Edinburgh now.
Oh my God, Edinburgh is gorgeous. It's so nice. Cumbria is literally
I'm looking on Google Maps. I'm like, where is it?
It's right between Scotland and England on the northwest, and it's just like,
wow,
yeah. So it's got some coast, it's got some inland, and then there's like Cumbria on the northwest, and then there's like Northumberland on the northeast. But yeah.
Were there any myths or fairy tales or even British folklore that you kind of drew on while building this world, or was it all inspired by the Frankenstein of Cumbria's own backstory?
I think the brutality and the isolation of the folklore that I kind of paint with comes from the folklore I was told as a girl. There was this woman called Dorothy who, like, I just loved her so much. She was kind of like such a mother figure to me as a kid. And she was the farmer's wife. She lived next door. And I used to go to her house after school, and she'd like put my hair in like curlers, and she'd do my makeup. And I really miss her all the time. She was the best. And she used to tell me a lot of folk tales. And I think just her love of story and connecting with people was just such a massive part of my experience of stories, because I wasn't a particularly bookish child. Like, my experience in education, like, I think teachers try their best. I think there are problems politically with education that prevent teachers from doing their best for every individual child. And I really struggled with reading in particular and writing. And so, like, oral stories were like, just, that was my way in. And she told me lots and lots of things about, and I don't know if a lot of these things, I don't know if they were like actual folk tales or things she was just making up to like make me feel like I was being told a bedtime story. But she told me so many different things that have definitely made it into the book. So she used to tell me that, because we have this thing called the Helm Wind in Cumbria, which is a specific wind current created by the Pennine, the shape of the Pennine Hills. And because of that really unique shape, it has a very unique whistle sound, which is terrifying because sometimes it sounds like it's screaming. And it can be so powerful, this wind current. It can literally tear the roof off of a barn, or like, you know, it is like, it can be very peaceful and calm, but it can be vicious. And when it was really bad, you could see the trees, like they'd move like back and forth, and the ground would kind of move with them. Like it was very creepy. And she used to tell me that it was like giants breathing under the grass. But that, you know, that makes, when you learn about the history, that then makes complete sense, because like Norwegian folk tales, lots of it is giants, and like, you know, so that little inject there of that history, like you can feel that echo. So a lot of what I think inspired The Lamb probably came from that one specific woman who she was somebody who had a lot to give. And I think she was, you know, as an adult now, kind of seeing it in hindsight, she was probably quite lonely and didn't have a lot of friends because it was so isolated. And so there was a school child who lived next door, and she was like, let's do makeup and tell stories. And she was great. She was a wonderful human being, really wacky and zany. And she always she would do really lovely things. Like, I used to be really anxious about my teeth, and she'd point at her teeth and they were like quite yellow and crooked, and she'd be like, you still think that I'm beautiful, don't you? And I'd say, yeah. And so like she really like gave me I know, she was the sweetest. Like, she gave me such a beautiful foundation on even things like the beauty standard through her ability to connect with people and her ability to tell stories. And I think that's why, like, in the book, like, folk tales have this inherent, like, folk tales can be really beautiful, but they can also uphold certain conservative values. And I think one of the things that folk tales can uphold is beauty ideals for women. So like, you've got hags and mothers, and like, you know, like the morality of wherever you are on that spectrum of woman, you know, that will tell you if you're doing the right thing or the wrong thing. And she was somebody who constantly subverted that for me. And so I was able to kind of ingest that into the story and talk about things that are kind of traditionally ugly, like teeth or like a plump belly, but not necessarily inject ugliness into them, but just humanity into them, I think. So that was like quite a big part of what I did in terms of drawing from like storytelling and folktale conventions and just general folk vibes. Yeah.
She sounds amazing. That is so wholesome.
She was the best.
Did you stay in touch with her at all when you moved?
A little bit, but she passed away a couple of years ago. But she had like a really long, full life, and it was full of love, and she was just wonderful. So I only have like very happy memories and feel joy whenever I think about her, because she was just fab.
That is so special.
Yeah.
It's so nice. It sounds like something that Margot would love, actually.
Yeah.
Like, she needs a person like
she
that.
needed a Dorothy.
She did need a Dorothy. Poor thing. So, speaking about Margot, so she's nearly 12 in the book, but her emotional intelligence is so advanced, and her understanding of violence and secrecy is very advanced and complex for her age. How did you access her voice and keep it so believable? Because she does just feel so much like a innocent young child, but still keep that haunting element of the horrors of what she's seeing around her.
You have amazing questions. So
Give it a try.
You are so good at this. So I think in this case, Margot, it's so interesting to me because this has actually been a criticism of the book from a lot of people. I would never for a second regret writing her that way, because she is an autistic girl who has excellent pattern recognition and is really intelligent and observant, but is still a child. And I remember being that extremely contrary little girl who had very good pattern recognition and would say things out loud without realizing it was a problem to say it. And that kind of, there's like an other, because this is the thing, you can categorize an older woman who has autism and breaks all of those kind of rules as a manic pixie dream girl. You can't do that for a child because there's no way to sexualize that. It's just somebody being annoying.
True story.
True story. And so I think for Margot, it's really interesting because she breaks a lot of social conventions by being the way that she is, by both being like a child who is imaginative and has those basic animal needs of I need love, I need shelter, I need food, I need to be accepted by my human community, all of those things. And at the same time, there's something different about her brain, which is that she's not a neuro-normal person. And I think that that's kind of like, I'm not saying that as like any kind of cop-out or excuse for people who don't like it, but that is why she is the way she is. And it's not made up. There are lots of children who are like that. And I would never, ever write her differently because it's a very unique experience to be, especially a young girl without a diagnosis and no name to put to how you are and why you are the way you are and why people look at you so differently. And I think it's a really important experience to put into her character. And it is something, while it's had that specific element of like, how is she both of those things at once? You know, people can tame multitudes and all of that. But I think it's also been really lovely to have, I said it at the beginning, but like the outpouring of messages about, you know, from people who are neurodivergent have messaged me that's why I do it. And that's, you know, I want people to feel seen and not alone in their experiences. And that's kind of been such a joy, is like hearing people talk about Margot and relate to Margot in those like weird, contrary, socially awkward moments that she has, the moments where she answers back and she shouldn't, shouldn't in inverted commas, because all power to her, she should absolutely answer back. But I think that's why like autistic people struggle so much in culture, is because, and it's, for me, it always comes back to that answering back thing, which is that we are so conditioned to not question authority on like a mass scale. Like, don't answer back to your parents, don't answer back to your teachers, don't answer back to policemen, don't answer back to politicians. And it goes up and up and up and up and up and up. And that way of thinking only benefits like people who are in control of everything that we're doing and, you know, whatever. Autistic people are different. They ask so many questions. Yeah. They're always asking questions. They're always being curious. They say what they think because they don't, honestly, like, it's just the way their brains work. They'll just say it and they'll answer back. And it puts them into some really uncomfortable situations. And so it was just such a joy to write Margot that way. I don't know if I ever could write a neuronormal person. It sounds really hard to write a person who is neuronormal, because how do you live that way?
I don't know. I wonder the same thing. I'm like, what does your brain sound like?
I know. I really want to know.
I don't know. Sounds boring.
So yeah, I think that was a huge part of like building her that way, was just kind of ingesting some of my own experiences into her. And yeah,
I think too, like, she seemed believable to me as a child who is being abused by her mother and having love basically be the weapon held against her, like having love held hostage, but she's still a child. Like, to me, her behavior didn't seem out of line with like how a young child would be wanting to please their parent and keep and make their parent happy, but they're still just a kid. So I thought she was great. I loved her. Eden. Let's talk about Eden. So Mama's dynamic with Eden really, really shifted the balance in the house, and it definitely felt like a cat among the pigeons. How much of Margot's awakening or that shift in Margot is about jealousy and fear of abandonment? How much of it do you think is about desire or something else?
I think Eden shows Mama and Margot a different way of living. I think without Eden, that house is like an incredibly hostile place. And something that Eden does that I think Margot at the beginning really likes is she brings out this sense of love and family and community. And I think, like, honestly, like 99.99999% of the human race, I don't want to speak for everybody, crave love and community, because that's where really social animals, and we used to live in, like, you know, communities or tribes or whatever you want to call like these groups of people. That's been stripped away from us by capitalism, because capitalism wants to sell you 6 hammers and not one that you can share. And so she presents this kind of like really beautiful, idyllic, euphoric way of living, a version of what they already have that is just so much nicer and warmer and safer. And that's how abusive people work. They present something like super beautiful and idyllic, and you can't live without this feeling that they're giving you. And then they take it away as a punishment for whatever, and then they use it as a punishment reward system. I think she kind of awakens both of those things in Margot, though, because Margot is somebody who is coming of age. Margot is definitely a budding queer person. I don't think she has the name to put to it, because it's not a house where, you know, Mama doesn't invite, you know, forms of identification. She doesn't say, here's your autism label, or here's your gay label, or here's your I'm being abused label, because that doesn't benefit her. It actually works better for her if she doesn't have the names for all of these, you know, to put to what she's experiencing. But I think Eden just kind of, it's really sad because the love is like so artificial, I think, but Eden does show Margot what that love can feel like if she had it. But I do think, sadly, it's an incredibly artificial, conniving love that is like used purely as a tool to kind of position herself in the house in such a way that she can control what's happening, which makes me feel really, really sad, because Margot kind of falls for it, like, because she's just so desperate, I think. But it was, Eden was so much fun to write, though, because she's just so awful.
Awful.
And awful and hot as well, which is like my favourite.
Both things
combo.
can be true, yeah.
So, you know, we live in a world of multitudes.
We do.
Yeah.
I really wasn't sure where the story was going to go when Eden came in. I had an idea of what might happen, and it was not at all what ended up happening, which was a very nice surprise, because I appreciated that it completely took me off guard. I was not expecting it to go the way that it did. Also, was her name intentional? Because I was thinking about that.
Can I tell you something? And I would say that you've got to promise not to tell anyone, but this is a podcast. So everybody asks me all the time, like, you've got such amazing religious imagery in this book, and I need to just confess something. It's all by accident.
I love that.
There probably is something subconscious coming in there, but it's completely by accident and it's purely coincidental. The book is called I Am the Bleating Lamb, or it was originally called I Am the Bleating Lamb. We changed it to the lamb. I know that the lamb is quite a religious symbol of like new birth, complete accident. You know, the fact that she's called Eden, the Garden of Eden. I just lived by a river that was called the Eden River. Like, all of these things are just sort of like completely accidental.
You're so real for that.
I need to confess, I don't want to get that question at another event about the religious imagery and have to try and come up with a smart answer. So this is me telling my truth. Completely accidental. But if people see that in it, also, you know, it's out of my hands now, so it's not for me to tell you what the book is about. You can think what you want, but yeah, completely accidental. Eden was named after the river that I grew up next to.
And maybe that was named after the Garden of Eden, so you never know. Maybe
exactly.
In a long roundabout way. I thought it was funny, actually, because a draft I'm working on at the moment that I have been working on for a long time, the main character is also called Eden, and I was like, another Eden, what are the odds?
Slay name.
Yeah. So speaking about craft, the pacing and tension is so good. You manage to ratchet it up scene by scene. It's really keeps you turning the pages. Did you plot out the novel in advance, or are you more of like a free writer?
I'm somewhere in the middle. So The Lamb kind of had like a funny conception, because it wasn't a book that I sat down to write as a book. I was just messing around with like flash fictions, and then slowly like emerged. I was like, oh, these are connected, like this family is emerging, let's do something with this. I think I pantsed it for like a significant amount, and then I realized that I was like, okay, I just need like a rough map. I do the Terry Pratchett thing where he says, you know, there are people who have a full map and there's an open valley and they can see every tree, the path, the mountain, and like everything in such detail. There are people who walk into with no map, and it's like fog has flooded the valley and they're just going to wing it. And then there's people who are kind of in the middle. I'm somewhere in the middle. I kind of like to, I don't know if it's ADHD, but I'm constantly having to like change up the way I do things to like keep myself stimulated, which is awful for my autism because my autism craves the same thing like every single time. My ADHD has like other ideas. And so, yeah, that's kind of how I brought it together, was just kind of, I mean, even this is like an ongoing challenge because even with the next one that I'm writing, I'm having to like accept that I have no routine and kind of lean into the chaos of like what my writing structure is like, which is there is no structure. But I also think that was the vignette aspect, like it's written a lot in vignettes because that's kind of all my attention span could manage. But I think that works for like especially readers who also have ADHD, is they get like that beautiful dopamine hit after like they finish a short chapter. More books.
I agree. I love that. I'm like, yeah. I will actually read so much faster if the chapters are short because it feels shorter, even though it's not.
I read this whole book in 4 hours if it's just got short chapters.
One of my favorite authors, Sarah Rosetta, she wrote Ripe and The Book of X. I interviewed her for an episode and she writes like vignette style every chapter. Mm-hmm. And for her, it was because she works on her books. She has a full-time job. And so, but she's very disciplined when she's working on a novel. So it's like she has time in the evening and then her weekends is when she writes. Mm-hmm. But she never wanted to be having to reread through things that she'd written the day before and then starting again. And like, so she decided to she plot out or map out all the scenes that she knew she wanted to write and basically pick a scene like a tarot card from a deck, write it like in a complete scene in a sitting. And that's why it's so like punchy and feels so complete at the end of every chapter. I find it fascinating. Like, and the way that everybody works is so interesting.
That's such an interesting way of working. I love that.
I really liked the idea of like drawing it like a tarot. For me, that also would work quite well as a way to change it up and keep it interesting. Because I always get to like the 20,000 word mark and I'm like, I hate this.
It's like the 7-year itch, isn't it? It's like, you're just like, oh my God, like, why does this suck ass? Like,
it sucks so bad and I don't know where I'm going and it's shit.
That is the most real thing that anybody has ever said on a podcast ever.
I'm like, how are people getting past this over and over again? I've got so many like manuscripts that died at 20,000 words.
Same. And we've got to have the willpower to just keep going somehow.
Yeah. Oh my God. I feel like if people can, I don't know, if anyone who listens to this podcast is like aspiring to write, I hope that with each episode, at least you feel a bit of like solidarity, because every single person I've spoken to experiences this shit bit at the 20,000 word mark, which makes me feel better and not like I myself am a flawed human being.
We're all flawed. Like
we're all bad, actually, it turns out.
Exactly.
So I know that you write by hand, which is very, very cool and also very rare. And that you've said that writing is a very physical act for you. So do you have a ritual or anything? I know that you just sort of said you're quite, it can be quite unstructured, but like you also do you work full time as well? How do you kind of juggle that, working on a book and also getting your words down? What's your process like?
With great difficulty. I think I'm learning that it's okay if I don't produce drafts as fast as my full-time writer counterparts is the first thing. Like I get so upset with myself for not hitting the same goalposts as my friends at the same time as they do, but also at the same time it's like I've got a completely different situation, so that is just like such an unrealistic thing to aspire to. What I can do,
Donna Tartt takes 10 years to write a book, so
exactly. And
at minimum 10 years. Yeah,
exactly. So we can all aspire to be a bit like her and put that into our process. So I think part of it is just like fully doing a Donna, taking your time to get it right. I do a lot of, I have two different ways of handwriting. The first way is I do have a remarkable tablet now, which I got post The Lamb. Would have been really useful to have while I was writing The Lamb, because when you write stuff down, it like turns it into like text. So you can just drop it into your Word document, spell check it. When I'm writing by hand, this is going to sound so ridiculous, but I have to write using yellow paper, and I don't know why. It's the only
heart
thing
wants what it wants.
Right, thank you. Yeah, exactly. So I have to write with yellow paper. And so usually what I do is like go onto like eBay and buy like a bulk packet of like yellow legal pads, and I just use those and I take them around with me, and then I type up after. And I have to constantly switch things up. Like I have a work laptop and a personal laptop, and I often find myself writing on my work laptop because the keys feel different. So just finding new ways to keep myself physically and like neurologically stimulated is a really important part of writing. Lots of vignettes, and just kind of accepting that I will write when I will write, even if that's not a structured routine. I try to do something every day, even if it's just a little bit. But yeah, that's kind of it's not really a process, but I don't know if that's, like helpful for anybody.
Fascinating to me. Do you know what I find the most interesting is how different everybody is. That to me is fascinating, is every single person has something completely different, a totally unique way of working. Mm-hmm. And I love that. I'm like, that is so cool. To me, that's very comforting and reassuring that there is, I mean, you can hear all day that you have to find your own way of working, and that, every process is different, but just knowing that like there really is no right or wrong way to do anything, and you have to just try stuff and see what works. I just love that. And how everybody who writes a book comes at it from a different point of view, a different perspective. It's so cool.
I say this for people who keep looking at Stephen King writing like 7,000 words a day, because not all of us can do that.
Does he literally?
He apparently he writes like something like 7,000 words a day, which I think is insane. And also
how much of that's good is what I want to know.
I need to know the answer to this too. But it's just that thing of like, I don't know about you, but I'm the flavor of autistic and autism that isn't like productive or accepted or stereotypical or clever. I'm like the dumbass flavor, which is
I dispute that. You're not a dumbass.
I am very proud of it, but it's that there's like a certain stereotype, isn't there, of like neurodivergent people, that they're hyper productive and always switched on, and actually like that is so not true. Like we have so much rot time, and like
so much,
permanently live in that rot state. So just like crawling out of that to write can be really hard. So I wanted to say that to validate anybody who isn't writing 7,000 words a day and is spending a lot of time rotting. So real.
Oh my God, I feel that so, I do have occasional moments of intense hyperfixation. Yeah. And when it happens, it used to happen a lot more. I actually haven't had a massive, could almost feel it coming on. Like I could literally feel it like a wave beginning to crest.
Like nervous energy.
Yeah. And I'm like, shit, it's coming. I just got to ride the wave and like know that I'm probably gonna be intense as hell about something for a few days. I did actually also get diagnosed with bipolar 2 disorder as well as ADHD, which the two are similar and often can be misdiagnosed for each other, but turns out I have both, which is fun, and also means that ADHD medication can actually exacerbate bipolar 2 because it's amphetamines, which you're supposed to take a mood stabilizer. So I do take a mood stabilizer, and that has helped a lot, and maybe that's why I haven't had. But I would find, like, if I had an ADHD hyperfixation period, I would have an equal and opposite bipolar crash, like afterwards.
Yeah. I've heard about, I sort of have a crash as well, but I think in probably a different way. But, like, I've heard that combo is, like...
It's like the dopamine crash, or, like, it's definitely... And also why the two can be confused for each other, because they do present similarly. And so... it's like you have bursts of brilliance, but then you pay dearly for it. Like it can be miserable too, and especially if it's happening a lot. But sometimes, I don't know, you learn cool shit. Like I got really, really obsessed with the volcanic eruption at Pompeii one time.
Love that.
Was fun got
That's a fun
really
phase.
interested in it. I know. And then did you see on The Guardian, they've just uncovered these sculptures that were buried during Pompeii that have been excavated? I'm nerding out. I'm like, that's
Yeah,
so cool.
lots is
That's
going
so
on right
cool.
now in the archaeological world. I feel like I've had all these phases too, so I'm feeling very like sort of like
Seen?
parallel excited. I'm just like, yes, yes.
It's so weird, eh? And like, you can't direct that energy. Imagine if you could, how incredible. But no, like, it's like
It's
either
true.
you're going to need to learn every single thing about one particular event in history or nothing.
I actually think this is like such an important conversation to have as well because, you know, there are so many podcasts, even like generally, but also specifically about craft and like the graft of writing, but nobody talks about kind of the well-being aspect of writing and looking after yourself while you're writing, which is insane to me because it's like such a emotional craft to do. And I even remember when I went to uni, we as like a group asked if we could have like a mental health kind of parallel writing workshop about how to manage your mental health and write at the same time. And they literally told us, don't be ridiculous. You don't need that. And it was just like, okay, we're all going
Fine.
into like lifelong debt for this. Like, please, can you just do it? Like,
Oh my
um,
God.
but it's such an important thing to do because like so often like amazing podcasts talk about like the craft aspects and you know how to be a writer and blah blah blah, but like so much of being a writer is resting and thinking and looking after yourself and making sure you're mentally safe enough to access those kind of really dark facets of, you know. So I think this is like, I actually really applaud you for having these conversations and being so open on your show about them because they're just so important.
You're so right. Like, it doesn't make me feel good listening to person after person talk about how
Mm.
prolific they are. Like, and I'm like, wow, okay, it's been taking me a long time to write this one thing that
Mhm.
is kind of hard. So
It's
does that mean I
accessibility, though,
suck?
isn't it? It's just accessibility, and it's about giving access to people who work in different ways. Like, you know, I think the culture that we have, it's such a monoculture. So, like, there's one way of working, there's one way of dressing, there's one kind of music you should listen to. And I think opening the conversation to, you know, to these discussions means that people who do work differently and have brains that kind of operate in a different way can feel access to a specific craft, which maybe they didn't do before. And that's really nice and wholesome.
Yeah, I think so too. I think so too. So speaking of writers, who inspires you?
There's so many,
Living or
so many,
dead, whoever.
living or dead. How many can I say? Do I have like a
As many as
limit?
you want.
Okay, let's go.
Whatever.
Shirley Jackson, love. Angela Carter, Molly Aitken, Kirsty Logan, Amy Twigg. I'm rereading Split Tooth by Tanya Tagaq, which
Oh, I haven't
is,
read that.
it's fucking fantastic. It's so good. It's an Inuit folk tale about growing up on a reservation in Canada,
Oh
and
my God, that sounds amazing.
it's fucking brilliant. And if for people listening, if that hasn't convinced you, Elliot Page said that it was literally one of the best things that they've ever read.
I'm definitely adding that to my. I'm literally
Yeah.
making a podcast reading list for people because not only with all of your guys' books, but also the books that you guys recommend.
It's really good. Yeah, I would say those are kind of the main ones. I also kind of, in terms of like more other contemporary ones, like obviously Julia Armfield and Eliza Clark, in Otessa Moshfegh, like in this space, like Mona Awad. There's probably more that I'm missing that I'm going to feel guilty for not saying later. Genevieve Jagger, Fragile Animals, I thought was great. Eva Balthazar as well. I'm constantly I'm a chronic rereader as well, so like I'm constantly rereading these books. But Eva Balthazar wrote a book called Mammoth, which is like one of my favorite novellas. I read it in like 45 minutes because it's quite a short book. It's so good.
Wow.
And it's about a woman who, she's a lesbian, but she wants to have a baby, but also she's single. And she basically just goes out looking for a man to sleep with just so she can have a baby and then like dump them off. And I kind of love that for her. But
Power
like it's
to
also,
her.
it's got this like really folktale-y edge to it. So it's called Mammoth. It's very metaphorical. And like, it's so interesting because it's one of those books that like, you can speak to someone else who's read it and they'll have a completely different perspective on the book. And so I came
I love
into
that.
work and I was like, I loved it so much. I love that it's called Mammoth because it's kind of about this like feeling of extinction and wanting to have a child and to keep life going, but also at the same time, like the world is isolated and terrible and all of these things. And she was like, "You got that from the book?" I was like, "Yeah, didn't you?" So it's just one of those books that just sparks conversation instantly, I think, because so many people can read it in so many different ways. So yeah, there's so many. It's hard to list just a couple. So there's like a whole bunch.
We're so lucky to live in an age with so many incredible writers, like
I know.
especially so many incredible female writers. Like, oh my goodness, I'm just so excellent. There's literally all I want in this world is just like 3 to 6 months at a cabin in the woods with no cell phone reception, no internet connection, no disturbances, and my TBR pile. Like, I'd be a happy girl. That's all I want.
A mood.
If The Lamb were to be turned into a horror movie, who would you cast?
This is so hard. I think about it all the time. There's so many actors who I think would be amazing. I have specific ideas about Eden and Steve.
Dear Steve.
Stephen Graham, I think, would be really good, and Mark Addy. I love Mark Addy. He's brilliant. And for Eden, okay, I have like a very long list of people, but Kristen Stewart, I literally love. Emma Corrin, I think they're amazing. Who else? Gillian Anderson, also.
Yes. Oh
right?
My God, I can see that. Yes.
Yeah, I could see that too. Like, I'm just going to put that out there. But there are just so many amazing actors who I could see stepping into those roles. And I really hope that one day it happens. The film industry is like really tough at the minute. And I'm really not one of those authors who wants to sell my option for the money, not caring if it gets made or not. Because I'm a filmmaker, I want to see an amazing director get involved. I want to see them go crazy with it. I want to see them subvert my expectations. I want to know what changes they're going to make and like be excited by it. And I don't want to be, so I just want to see, I'd love to see it be made into a film because I think because I'm a filmmaker that it naturally kind of has a sort of cinematic vibe to it.
I agree. It definitely reads that way.
Just hardcore manifesting. Yeah.
And Mama?
I've talked about this with a friend and I love Rachel Weisz. Like, so much. I could see her and Gillian Anderson. I could see, like...
The girls' gays and theys would go wild.
Absolutely feral. I know. There's a lot of different directions I think you could take the casting depending on how you wanted to frame the story. But I would love to see that little cohort, but we'll see what happens.
I'm manifesting it for you. And then one last thing was, what the heck was it like having your book chosen for Dakota Johnson's book club in February, literally right after it was released?
I died a lot. It was like absolutely dead. I was like, so I think I mentioned it at the beginning of the call, but I'm a sales and marketing assistant by day. And so whenever these really exciting publishing emails come in, I'm at work. Usually I'm at work. And that one came in while I was in the middle of like a super important meeting, but it popped up and I read it and I had to act so fucking calm for like while I was on this call with this like really, because I work in publishing, so we work with lots of publishers and like the staff of the publishers, and so like I was like I just can't break right now, I have to wait. And that meeting went on for like 2.5 hours.
Oh my God.
And so I was like holding it in. It was unreal, honestly. And like, I feel so lucky that I got to have that opportunity because it just opened the Tea Time Book Club. Like they have this little book club group chat on Instagram where they post lots of stuff and readers can kind of engage. And honestly, it was just such an amazing opportunity to be opened up to that group of people who, you know, had some really interesting things to say about the book. It was really nice. Always things you don't notice about your own work that other people are like, oh, I noticed this and this. And you're like, huh, cool. It's like being psychoanalyzed, like on a very public stage.
True. Yeah.
You know, so that was, it was fascinating, and also just a complete joy. And that the team who managed that club with Dakota Johnson are just like really amazing, friendly, lovely people as well. So it was just, yeah, it was a great experience, and still extremely surreal.
That's incredible. I work in my day job, I work in advertising, and not for much longer, having a bit of a change soon, but I have done for years, and I specialize in social media, and you cannot pay for that level of exposure. Like, holy shit. Like, if you were to actually pay her to engage her, oh my God, it would cost an absolute fortune. Like, to have that like earned PR,
insane.
like, you just, oh my God, and like, amazing.
Yeah, I feel so lucky. Both my publicists on both sides of the pond are like the most hardworking, amazing people. So flowers to them as well, because it's one of those really weird things where, like, to the general public, the book belongs to the author, but there's such an enormous team who have worked on the Lamb. You know, editorial, we worked really hard on it. The market, especially my marketing person in the UK, because marketing in the US is very different to marketing in the UK. And like my marketing campaign in the UK was very kind of like, I don't know, it was really, really hands-on. And she just went off. Like, she's called Jab.
She did the most. Like, looking at your events, it looked incredible.
She did amazing. She was just, every time she had an idea, she was like, I want to do this and I want to do this. And I'd just be like, go get it, girl. Like, she was brilliant and so hardworking. And I was like, I'm manifesting both a raise, an award, and a promotion for you after this is done.
Can you tell us anything about what you're working on next? Or is that top secret?
It's not super top secret, and I'm a massive oversharer. So I'm still working on like the plot a lot, but the vibes, we're getting there. So I'm thinking like coastal folklore, lots of eels, because I'm really into eels at the moment, and also lots of threesomes, and also just like really bisexual, like mega bisexual energy is like the vibes.
That sounds great.
Yeah.
I mean, I will say I actually have a phobia of eels, like a legitimate phobia. So,
no.
but as a proud bi, I'm here for the representation.
They need their moment. Like, Mama's the ultimate bisexual, and sometimes I get quite sad that she's labelled not as a bisexual, because I'm like, she likes both. She's had both. She's going to continue to have both. Like,
yeah,
Mama.
She just wants love.
She does.
That's all she wants. That sounds very exciting. What do you hope readers will take away from The Lamb when they finish reading the last page?
Courage. I really hope that people have the courage to set boundaries, to really investigate the relationships that they have, to stand up for something that is really hard to stand up for if they believe that it's the right thing to do. Like, that is Margot's journey. And so I hope that people kind of, latch onto that.
Also, I hope that they have a box of tissues with them.
Yeah.
It was a heavy one. It was heavy, but amazing. Me and my friend, because we read it at the same time, we were like messaging each other, like texting on Instagram, like, oh my God. The fuck?
The sorrows.
Heavy on my heart.
Yeah.
Okay, well, thank you so much for being so generous with your time and your wisdom behind the story. It's been so fascinating getting to understand a bit more about your thought process behind everything and the way that you like to work, and also how similar we are with our neurodivergence. Is super fun. So thank you so much for joining me.
No, thank you. I've had the best time. This is such an amazing podcast. And you're brilliant. So I'm just glad that you had me here to have a girl chat, you know?
It's been fun. I do feel like we need a part 2. I'm not joking you. I only got through half my questions.